I'm Mike Kennedy. I'm with the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council, Jobs Plus, and I'm the president of Intermax Networks in Coeur d'Alene. Our business is internet, our business is broadband, and it's been fascinating over the last 20 years how much of a critical infrastructure piece it's been and has become. We are a company that provides fiber and cable and fixed wireless internet throughout North Idaho. If nothing else, the pandemic last year taught us that broadband is a necessity for everyone. Work from home, school from home, telehealth. And so we've had to really ramp up in the last 2 years the speed of deployment. And that's come with amazingly high growth here in Coeur d'Alene as well. And so for us in broadband, all of us, not just my company, but we have had to do more investments and more construction and more expansion than we had in years prior. And it's been interesting because in the context of the business community, the capacity that the business community needs keeps growing, and we have had to further extend broadband out deeper into more remote regions and more remote areas so that the companies that are looking to either relocate here or expand here have the capacity that they need, both from a bandwidth perspective, but from a voice perspective and a computer perspective. All of the companies that have satellite offices, whether they are the satellite office or they're the headquarters and there are others, have to be able to communicate back and forth together, and it just takes broadband, and it takes more and more of it every year. In 2019, Idaho created a broadband office. The new governor, then new Governor Brad Little, brought about a task force in which I sat to work through the issues and try to figure out where the most good could be done by a collaboration of government and private business and schools and healthcare facilities. What's been interesting to me is how rapidly the pandemic put some of those plans in place, because there were new funding mechanisms from the federal government and from the state that enabled this committee to get off the ground very quickly. And so I suspect the expansion of broadband in Idaho has had more progress in the last 18 months of 2020 and 2021 than in 5 or 10 years prior to that. The funding that was enabled through the pandemic to expand rural broadband where it financially doesn't make sense to do it from the federal government has been really game-changing in that it's allowed more folks work from home, telehealth, school from home, and to be able to get the kind of bandwidth that they need. We're not finished with the job yet. In Intermax alone, my company in the past 3 years has secured $15 million in infrastructure reimbursement funding to build out to these rural areas. And it's made a difference in the kinds of jobs that can be worked here and the kind of companies that can locate here, and certainly the individual homeowners and residents to be able to take school from home and do their telehealth in rural areas where we don't have all the doctors and nurses that we need. This concept of the digital divide is critical, and it really does exist. In the case of rural Idaho, a great percentage of our population in the Panhandle lives outside of a city limits, and even some of those city limits are pretty small and have not had the infrastructure needed. So there is a difference between folks that live in an urban area and a rural area. And our charge, both with my company Intermax and with Jobs Plus, the Coeur d'Alene EDC, is to close that divide. And so we're working with different municipalities, the state, our counties have been involved, Kootenai County, and the other federal government programs to be able to expand and build upon what we need and what we'll need not just now but for the future to get the broadband that we need. The high-speed internet infrastructure in North Idaho is strong. It's gotten better. It wasn't always great. But we have a number of companies that have invested in the infrastructure, invested in redundant links back to Seattle, back to Spokane, to Boise, to Portland, so that we can have a regional connectivity so that as things happen on the internet, if one connection breaks, you have redundancy to other areas. Importantly, it's the urban areas with the infrastructure that create sort of the hub and spoke out to the smaller rural areas. And that's where we have focused a lot of our efforts to make sure that the rural areas can have expansion and can have the kind of job opportunities that we're trying to create in the cities. and not have to have their kids relocate either into Coeur d'Alene or worse, Spokane or Seattle, when what they really want to do is stay in their communities and work from home remotely. You know, Intermax is a homegrown company in North Idaho. We started in Sandpoint in 2002 and have built it up to where we have 5,000 recurring clients on the broadband side and another 5,000 in voice. We've got 80 employees across 4 offices. And that's been a real strength of ours because we can handle remote technology needs in St. Mary's and Bonners Ferry and Sandpoint, as well as Coeur d'Alene, because we have local people living in those areas. And it's important to have that local connection because the time to respond when there are issues is stronger, and the community awareness of where the next projects need to be in the areas that need more service. So the local strength is probably our biggest selling point and the thing that we're most proud of. You know, the trends in North Idaho on growth are staggering, and more people are moving to the remote rural areas that don't have the infrastructure that they may have become used to in the areas from which they came. So the growth issue is real, and we need to continue to expand that infrastructure throughout, not just roads and sewer and water, but also broadband, which is critical infrastructure. Another trend that is affecting us in North Idaho is the in-migration that is coming are often retired folks, and so the job market is a little bit more constrained in that sense, and so we have to be more creative about where we're finding employees. And ultimately we've done, and I know a lot of other companies have too, more work on bringing in entry-level green employees and training them up on the ways that we need their skill sets to evolve. And we've worked with the colleges and we've worked with the high schools to be able to do a fair amount of internship work. So those two things, the growth and the job market, they're issues everywhere in the country, but we are working with them pretty hard here, and they're better problems to have than stagnation or decline. And that's one of the things that I keep reminding folks when I talk to them about whatever their issues are and concerns about growth. We have business clients that we partner with in many unique ways. One of them is that oftentimes Coeur d'Alene or Sandpoint or our North Idaho offices are remote satellite offices of a larger company. So we have to work with that company's IT department back where they are headquartered and arrange to ensure that the IT and the communications and the internet and the voice services are up to standards so that they can be that remote satellite office without any impact on their end user customers. In other ways, we work with groups. We're members of a group called Idaho Business for Education, a nonprofit group that comes together with business leaders trying to help work with, support, improve our education system so that the workforce is trained and that the state legislators who make policy understand how important some of these issues are. And that's a statewide organization, and the North Idaho wing, Intermax hosts the meetings biannually up here, and it's a good group of women and men in business who want to make sure that our schools are thriving, and it's important for our business health to do so. You know, looking towards the future, some of the initiatives that we have been engaged with revolve around municipal governments, particularly smaller municipal governments who don't have their own IT offices and don't have their own resources necessarily to build out what they need to. So we've been working with the side of our business that does managed services and IT computer network consulting and helping them secure their networks against the malware threats and the like, and also to understand the benefits and possibilities of today's generation of internet connectivity, because in some cases they are locked in old thinking about how their phone system works and where they get internet, and we can help break that paradigm a bit to be able to save their taxpayers money and also protect their critical infrastructure that is so important. You know, quality of life is what brings so many of us here. I've got 30 years under my belt, and sometimes I feel like I haven't explored a tenth of what is out there for North Idaho. I feel like the quality of life, the quality of the workforce, and the ability to raise your family in a good community-oriented place is invaluable. There's an energy about Coeur d'Alene that I'm seeing that is exciting. The work amongst small business, the work amongst the colleges and the creative class, the art community, the technology community, it's a burgeoning place to be. And when you are surrounded by the kind of natural beauty that we have, it's really hard to beat. I moved to Coeur d'Alene in 1991, and it was not too long after they founded Jobs Plus, and the fact then was that it was in a very difficult economic situation. The downtown was pretty empty. The jobs were leaving instead of growing. And so this organization was built on a group of business leaders who decided that we have to stay here and make a stand and try to be creative about how we both encourage companies to come and build smaller companies into larger entities. That's one of my most important feelings about the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council is the companies that are already here that can grow, that need help, connecting them to other areas, whether it's capital or labor or intellectual property that can assist them if they want to grow. That helps everybody because homegrown companies make a huge difference in the number of jobs they create beyond just the number of people they employ. So the mix of recruiting companies that are looking for the kind of workforce that we have and growing the smaller companies that are here and employing local people, to me that's where the real magic happens when we're trying to merge those two things and build them together. And I think the Coeur d'Alene EDC does a great job at that.